Hey everybody, it's your friend Adam. I'm here with another Comicsgate comics creator. Von Klaus is his name. Is that a last name or is that a pen name? What is that?
That's that's my pin name.
Okay, cool. Adam Friended is my pen name too. So
Cool.
we were going to talk a little bit about story. I guess you want to just start off with a little bit of your background in storytelling.
Yeah, man. I got really into storytelling at a young age because everything I was writing was winning little awards and stuff, and I've loved it ever since. I started writing short stories in class instead of doing what I was supposed to and getting in trouble for writing about crazy lizard people and sci-fi experiments gone wrong and stuff. But as I grew up, I delved into different types of art and mediums and practiced drawing comics, practiced did graphic design, all kinds of stuff. But what I always came back to was writing. So in when was it? Like 2007, I went back to film school and studied screenwriting, directing, and graduated from Columbia College, Chicago, and moved on into the world of film, but very briefly. Took on a lot of jobs there, wrote a lot of screenplays, but I was always coming back to comics too, which is kind of my first love from when I was little. I would make comics. And that was always where I got to do things my way, was comics. And in film, not so good, not so much, man. Everything I ever did was changed, manipulated, turned into something completely different. In fact,
Welcome
you
to
guys can,
screenwriting.
yes, it's just the way it is, right?
Sorry to interrupt,
And
but go ahead. I feel for
no,
you.
that's you know it. And then I was gonna break away from film, but instead teach storytelling. So I started studying to become a professor for a while. So, and my goal as a professor was to cure this. I want to call it like a silent cultural crisis I'm seeing, where storytelling is not as valued and not as understood as well as it should be as a great thing. And we're forgetting it in so many ways. And I think our culture and a lot of our art, films, what have you, is reflecting that. And so I was going to become a professor, teach really good storytelling, and get those new generations on board. When I went to Columbia, I hate to say this about my school, I'm not trying to diss on it, but we got zero films into film festivals every year. And our films looked immaculate. I mean, the cinematography and all the technical aspects were on point, but there's no good stories. The scripts weren't any good. So I saw this crisis happen while I was in Columbia. I worked really hard to write the best scripts I could, won a few awards, got a few things made. And then of course I decided not to go out to LA and get my balls and heart broken, like so many have. I just wanted to avoid that. So yeah, I almost became a teacher, but then I realized in a college setting, that was going to be bad news too. There was going to be a lot of SJW stuff. There was going to be, they probably wouldn't like me. I wouldn't like them much. Like, why put all this work into it and then have to leave being a teacher? So I came back to making comics. And so I could do things my way. And that's why we have things like Monster MD now.
So what did you do in filmmaking? Did you write shorts or have you written full feature
Yeah.
length screenplays?
Yeah, I did both. In Columbia, because at school, you ended up. I focused on shorts and churned out a lot of shorts, which was great. I mean, shorts are hard to
Yeah.
get that structure right within that small amount of pages. You have to hit and be very tight on everything, which I liked that challenge a lot. And I wrote a few screenplays. Yeah, I have a little stack of them, like a lot of us do, that didn't get made, didn't do anything with, didn't go out to LA to try to make them. And some of them could be poached and adapted into comics, in cool ways. Monster MD was a short screenplay at first before I blew it up into this awesome book. So
Were the scripts comedy or sci-fi or action?
horror and comedy, and a lot of comedy horror. I had one script that I made that ended up winning a few awards and playing a few festivals, and we won best horror comedy,
Nice.
which was yeah,
Nice,
that was
yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I'm adapting a screenplay. That's why I'm curious because I'm not as versed in comics as these other guys. I come out of a fine art.
Mhm.
I I I got a fine art degree. I've been painting my entire life. Like I've had shows, I've done illustrations, that kind of thing. But I've never really done a comic before. So I've written a bunch of screenplays and I'm versed in storytelling. So I'm kind of marrying two skill sets with not necessarily, growing up reading comics. I had a couple of college buddies that would read X-Men all the time, and they would always argue over the characters in X-Men, which I found fascinating. But I've kind of been dyslexic my whole life, so reading has
Uh-huh.
always been a challenge to me. I've always all the stuff I know from audiobooks. So reading
Yeah.
comics, I love Comixology, and I've had an account with Comixology where I don't know if you know the formatting of Comixology, but it allows you to read comics where you don't have to scan all over the page for where the bubble is. You can just zoom in on the bubble. That's
Yeah.
actually
That's
great. So I've read a lot of
yeah.
comics that way. But so do you have
Great.
how did you go about adapting? Like, are there any hard and fast rules, or is it just, make it cool, basically?
Well, make it cool is a good starting rule, but or just like an overarching like rule for how you do things, what drives you. But I found through when I adapted Monster MD into a comic, I found that I had to get away from screenwriting the
Mm-hmm.
more I worked on it. Leave those that because it's its own craft and it's an awesome craft. I love it, but let's leave it behind where we're writing like less. We're writing for a visual medium, obviously, but with screenwriting, you're trying to make it like pop and move fast so you can get to the emotional beats to capture your reader, right? And it needs to read like a good novel. Where a graphic novel, whereas a comic, like you get to direct the visuals and make them more powerful based on the emotions. You get more direction of that. And that's part of the fun, I think, of comics that I like so much. You get to you're picking the mise en scene. You're picking the pacing of how readers are going to read the action versus the more dramatic moments. You get to direct the camera. So I guess, but in the end, I didn't think about it like a camera anymore. I threw all the filmmaker part of me out in a lot of ways. And instead, it became about learning the craft of comics. And what I like about comics is you can do so much with so little. I was able to do an entire backstory for a character in 1 page and 5 panels, just 5 strong panels that are each one is at a different time in her life moving forward. And then that's it. That's the only backstory you get on this character. And it came out great. You can do things like that were kind of harder to do in film. Another thing about comics though is it has its limitations too. When you're writing, you're kind of forced because of the nature of the medium to choose only a certain amount of words for every word bubble and only a certain amount of words per page, or else things get to, they turns into Brian Michael Bendis a little too fast. So you end up like really regulating yourself. And I think that has made me a better writer actually than when I was screenwriting, because my lines are so much more pithy and like cool one-liners now. I've noticed as I'm writing more and more comics. I'm writing my new comic and I'm already on page like 98. I'm loving it. And like the more I write them, the more I'm like, dude, less is more, less is more. Like those one-liners hit harder the less words you use,
Yeah.
So it forces you to be pithy because it's a claustrophobic medium, which some people might not like that. I like the challenge of it. And I think you can do an infinite number of awesome things within that framework.
Well, on pacing, what exactly do you mean? Like, there are certain rules that I know in screenwriting as far as like try to, the standard scene is like 3 to 5 pages. Like if if your scenes are
Yeah.
10 pages long, something's wrong. So
Right. Right. That's a good point. I guess when I'm thinking about pacing, I'm talking about actual like actions of characters.
mhm.
You can speed things up with the right paneling of showing someone do an action, and you can also slow things down.
Mhm.
Um, you can give people that kind of slow-mo feeling with comics if you do the panels right. So yeah, it's been a learning experience for me too, actually, because I've written comics before, but I feel like the more I write, the more I learn about the cool things you can do, the cool tricks and stuff. So yeah, with this newest book its pacing goes from like intense action to like really strong visuals just by themselves, like a good splash page that really captures like the human emotion, or like how hard the action hit maybe. So it's definitely like, it becomes a little rhythmic. It becomes a little musical in comics. In screenplays, I'm sure it can be too, but you're writing a script essentially as a blueprint when you write a movie for a crew to make, right? Or for a producer to get all gaga for and want to make it. So you don't get into visual. You get to do visuals, but you have to, it's very limited. You have to like get them to the emotional beats. I feel like when I'm writing a screenplay. With a comic, I feel like those visuals get to connect more to the emotional beats. And when you're writing a panel, I mean, you could be like Alan Moore and write a panel and describe it for paragraph after paragraph. Now, I don't like to do that. I like to go easy on my artist. But essentially, you can if you want, because in the end, it's about creating very specific visuals to have a very specific impact on your readers. That, or at least you hope for that. That's what you go for. Whereas in a movie, you can pick the good visuals here and there. To me, it's very terse. And then in the end, you hope that whatever director or production designer will use them to effect. You know what I mean? Like you're kind of hoping.
Like in screenwriting, so much of it is 3-act structure. And there's a completely different structure for television shows, but television shows often, like the pilot will be the first act, and then the entire season will be the second act, and then usually the show closing is the third act. I'm curious if there's something similar for comics. Yeah, a lot of TV shows do this. Like they have a premise pilot where they set up the premise of the show, and then the entire season is just a long extended second act. I think like Parks and Recs is a perfect example of that, where there's like a premise pilot where they're setting up all of the various characters' goals, and then each one of those characters are going to pursue those goals and fail at them each episode of the show.
Yeah.
And then the final episode of the show is, they actually achieve their goals. So, but in screenwriting, it's all done. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But on comics, I'm wondering, because the comics that I've read, some are nice closed off things and some are more loose. So I'm curious what your take is on that, or if there's any guidelines you can give me.
I got into comics holding 3-act structure as my bread and butter. Yeah. So because I believe that within 3-act structure, there's infinite possibilities. Some people feel like it's holding them back, or they need 4 acts or whatever, and that's fine. But for me, I feel like it's a solid way to tell a story that hits all the beats you need to hit. And I've studied so many movies that are so good that follow it. I'm kind of a believer. So that's how I approached my comics. And the way I tell my stories is I want to tell a big, awesome, satisfying story with a beginning, middle, and end. I haven't been being loose. So it's interesting. So even if I am going to be loose, let's say I write 1 issue and I know it's going to be like a 4-issue series, I still want a good like beginning, middle, and end to that book, even if it is still like a little open to what needs to happen next. I haven't thought about approaching something as like Act 1 is issue 1 and then Act 3 is issue 2 and everything else is Act 2 in between. That's interesting. I'll think about it. But I feel like every good solid issue needs a good solid beginning, middle, and end. And even as you're writing 1 page, like actions on the page can be stronger if you approach it keeping in mind a beginning, middle, and end to these small moments in the scenes too.
Yeah, I was trying to do that. Beginning, middle. That's like beginning, middle. Each scene should have a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah. Do it because it will make your scenes that much stronger. They will have those turns, those emotional turns or turns of plot that make the reader go, oh wow, this is interesting. I'm engaged. I'm going to keep reading this. So that's how I've approached it. My newest book is, oh God, it's such a strong 3-act structure, and it's like little mini 3 acts all throughout for every scene. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. Actually, it's got a lot of cool stuff going on. So yeah, I recommend it because it may sound like it's got regulations and boring to some writers, but it really isn't. It makes your writing have all the turns and beats that it needs to stay interesting. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a I don't know. It seems like the rules are there to just to structure things. When people, I think the biggest problem sometimes in screenwriting or storytelling is just when people are confused. You want to avoid confusion at all costs. So this project is relatively successful. Has it been? Has this shipped already? You made about $65,000 on the.
We're still working on it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's still, we've actually finished a lot of it.
The artwork is amazing.
Marco McCanny is like one of my favorite artists, and I get to work with him, so I'm really honored right now, man.
Yeah, so
great guy.
You're not an artist at all. You don't. You didn't do any of the artwork yourself, or?
Well, I just designed the characters, and worked with him to design the car, the meat wagon.
Okay.
Cool. I can draw, but I'm not, and I have drawn comics in the past. And I can do a lot of good design work that looks awesome, but I'm definitely not trying to sit around drawing my own comics with my full-time job right now.
Oh, okay. This is your spare time gig. That's cool. What how did this project come together? Can you tell us that?
Yeah, man. In 2009, I graduated from Columbia College, and I started, doing what I'm sure you've done before, which is you start like stocking up your ideas. Which ones are the best? Which ones are the coolest? Definitely. And you start trying to come up with cool ideas and get those screenplays going. And I was trying to come up with more Pixar-friendly ideas, ironically, because I would say, because it's weird. Monster MD, when you look at it, it's how do I put it? It's kind of like Pixar gone adult, is what some people have described it as.
Interesting.
So, but it started off as a more family-friendly idea that would be more of a cute, funny movie. Heartfelt film. And then I had a nightmare one night about a guy trying to, like a doctor guy in a big van thing, trying to work on this werewolf that's strapped down to a table and it's trying to bite him. And it was all freaky and all the lighting was crazy and horror movie. And I was like, I got to make Monster MD really cool. And another idea I had that made me like it was that everyone is doing Monster Hunter stories. Like every story is like someone with like dual katanas and like you're gonna, I'm gonna kill the monster, but I hope I don't become a monster, and everyone's in a trench coat just being a badass and vinyl and latex. And I was like, you know what if I did the opposite of that, but I figured out how to make it cooler than a Monster Hunter story? And so I challenged myself. I did it. I mean, I think I did it. A lot of people tell me I did it. I made a doctor to the local monsters who's somehow cooler than any Monster Hunter. In fact, I might do a Monster Hunter character in a story one day who's just like a total idiot. That might be fun.
No, it's great. It's totally high concept. I'm not surprised it's very popular.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad it worked out that way. It's been great. But yeah, so then I started making it back in 2015 as a short film and comic book, and then it moved into a comic book. And I had another artist back then.
Of the short film?
Nope.
Okay, so you only have a script. I have a bunch of shorts that are. I have a bunch of unfinished short films because things I just didn't get. You sometimes you got to cut your losses, guys. So
yeah,
and it's super hard, man. It's hard to make a good movie. It is very hard to make a good movie. So, but I have a bunch of finished shorts.
It is.
So
yeah, my dude, I can totally attest to that. It's so easy to fall into, I guess you could call it development hell or whatever, because you want, like, my friend is just now coming out with his movie short film. It's only 30 minutes long. Mm-hmm. He started it back in like 2015. I mean, it is a hard thing to do. Yeah. My first movie made me not want to. Maybe you not want to direct movies and maybe not want to do this stuff. Like, it seems like you have to really have that burning desire to do that, to make it happen, man. It's hard as hell. So I was enjoying making the screenplay version and then turning that into a comic. For a minute back then, I was like, maybe that's my style. Maybe I write a screenplay, but then I adapt it into a comic. Nah, man. Like from now on, I just write comics and have fun with that. But, what ended up happening? Oh, so I hired an artist back then who I don't work with now. and we did a version of Monster MD that was much more grimy and indie and like kind of like not very pretty and kind of more morose. It was kind of sad. It didn't have the energy and the fun of this one, and it wasn't really what I wanted. But this guy was kind of, you know, turning out what he turned out, and then he ended up turning on me. We had kind of a sad division, and then I moved on.
We got to hear that story.
Yeah. Well, he suddenly demanded that I pay him for the last 10 pages before he turned them in. And he became, over time as we worked on the project, I was really nice and polite to him, but he became less and less happy and friendly. And his art started becoming less and less finished. And he was just taking, in the end, he said he had like a sick family member. So I tried to be very,
accommodating.
Yeah, I tried to be sympathetic to him and help out. And so he said, I demand that you pay me for these last 10 pages. And he turned in the last 10 pages as sketches. They were like really poorly done sketches as kind of a screw you to me. I was really hurt by it because I had paid him a lot, paid him well, paid him on time, worked with him well, gave him all my notes. He would ignore my notes a lot of time and just draw whatever. It was not a good experience with him. He was pretty unprofessional in the end. So I was kind of glad. I was glad it was over, but I wasn't, because it was like I had this book that's almost done, but not. But it really wasn't my vision in the end. So I made this decision, like, can I work with Marco? Because Marco I knew would be perfect when I saw his art. He's amazing. And he captures monsters and comedy in just that perfect way, the perfect combination of peanut butter and chocolate that makes everyone happy. So I was like, can we make this happen? And Marco said yes. But did I really want to start this whole book over again? And the answer is yes. And I'm glad I did, because things worked out.
So Monster MD, you actually had some pages from another artist that you were unhappy with before
75
pages. So you paid for 75 pages. So was this before or after you'd launched I'm curious, because it seems like a lot of these people are launching these campaigns without really any some of them don't seem to even have any artists lined up to do the pages or anything like that.
Really? That's surprising.
Well, maybe I'm incorrect about that. Are people So give me the rundown. How did the project come together? Did you have a artist lined up?
Yeah, for Monster MD.
Yeah, when you launched this campaign, you launched it with this artist.
Yes, Marco was already on board, and we had already finished, I don't know, maybe 20 pages.
Okay, so you had a comfortable working relationship with him, and then you launched a campaign. The campaign's very successful. How did you manage that? Do you have a YouTube channel or anything like that?
I have a YouTube, but I don't. I've been terrible to my YouTube. Like, that is a dead garbage. I'm garbage at it.
Bad YouTube.
I really am. Bad. And because I have my full-time job and I have all this other stuff going on. I'm trying to make the best comics I can, so that comes first. And so I ended up, but yeah, I used my YouTube a little bit, but not much. You'll see a few Monster MD things on it. But what ended up happening was I just promoted the hell out of it on Twitter and on all these different comic book forums. I sent out, what did I send? And I sent out just like a little blurb and with a few images of Monster MD to all the horror news sites, because I was trying to play to my audience. I mean, this is a good thing. Horror people are always looking for new content. Horror conventions are big and do well for a reason. I wanted to play to those people. So, and I paid for a little bit of advertising on some horror websites. I don't know if it helped me for sure. I don't know the numbers exactly, but I went on a lot of people's YouTube shows and promoted my book and showed off the art, and everyone loved it. I think part of what has made it so successful is my passion, and my marketing for it was really well done and very persistent every damn day, promoting the hell out of it and making it fun and engaging. But also I think when people see what I'm selling, they see that it's pretty professional. And it looks fun. I think I did a lot of things right, I think, to get people to go, okay, like, I want to invest in this.
Yeah, no, it looks great. The artwork looks great. So when do you deliver? How far along is the book?
Well, it sucks because everything else is done except the coloring. So all we're doing is coloring now, which is awesome because Tanya, my colorist, is amazing. But she's a real deal artist, and she has to take her time to make these pages look so good.
The
So
color
I
is
recently
awesome. The color is totally awesome. So I can see
it's
why it
beautiful.
takes time. So
And
there's black and whites here that I'm looking at that, I mean,
mhm.
this is amazing.
Yeah.
But the color completely takes it up a notch.
Right. And when she gets done, it's going to be the best. I'm telling people early into 2020 because we still have about 50% to color and we have a 128 page book here. So we're trying to, I told Tanya to put the pedal to the metal and she said she would. So we're going as fast as we can, but we want to give you the best quality product that we can.
Yeah,
Because this is my
I don't
first
think
book.
people mind waiting if they're getting a quality product. I think I would be
Yeah.
more I would complain more if the book was late and it looked like crap than
Yeah.
anything. So, yeah.
You're not going to get a crappy looking book. And the story is really well written. It's the best thing I've ever written. I'm really proud of it. I learned even more about comics from doing this. I recommend if you guys want to learn how to write comics, just keep making them and keep writing pages. Study good authors that people like. I've been kind of on a Grant Morrison kick lately, actually. He's someone to learn from. But I don't know, man. It's not something that's gonna just come out like nothing, like another 48 page book. We're doing 128 pages plus Shinobi Sasquatch versus Monster MD is another free book you're gonna get, the crossover book. So that's another 20 pages. So it's a lot.
Yeah, most of these books are about 50 pages. Why did you decide to go with such a big book?
I wanted to give people the full story in one book, and I wanted to see how that worked out. I wasn't completely sure if it would be like appealing or not, and I didn't care because I loved Monster MD and I just wanted to tell the full story. I don't. Maybe it's because as a person who supported a lot of Indiegogo and Kickstarters, I don't like it when you get just one piece of the story and then have to wait a really long time for the next piece because it's crowdfunding.
Yeah, that's kind of the bottleneck of the model that's evolving here, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah. And so I was like, why not give them a full meal before they even before so that they could really get into these characters and story and then make them want more,
So this is a standalone graphic novel then, basically, at 120 pages. How are you handling the printing?
I'm talking to a lot of the printers I'm talking to some of the printers that some of us have used, and seeing if I can just get the price that I want and the quality that I want for this book. I'm not really overthinking it or anything. I trust these printers. I mean, these are some of the same people Doug Tenopple has used and Clint Stoker from Downcast has used. So
right,
I'm pretty stoked for it.
Have you dug into that stuff yet? Or I guess
not deep.
Yeah, I've started looking into it. Yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't necessarily know what you're going to do, but you're printing. You have 1,384 backers, so about 1,300 books you're printing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Plus the sketchbooks. There's not that many of them that were bought, but
so what's the sketchbook thing? Is that like a ash can?
It's the behind the scenes and the making of Monster MD. Like you'll get to see some of my character design sketches. You'll get to see all my notes on everything. You'll get to see some of Marco's great sketches, which he doesn't show off often, which is pretty sweet. You could even see some imagery from the old book, the old version. So it's kind of fun. It's kind of interesting. So I'm trying to
some of the
tell
reject
the story
pages.
That's
awesome.
Yeah, it is really interesting because the first book was so like kind of it was very indie and it was very kind of downtrodden and sad more than anything, even though my lines are funny, and it's almost it's funny. Some of the pages are almost panel for panel what Marco drew, but Marco draws it with so much energy and greatness that the old book just looks, out of place. It's pretty interesting to compare them. So I want to do that for sure. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about making it and give people that cool inside behind the scenes look.
How did you establish a relationship with Marco? Did you know him before you started doing comics? Or
Oh, no, I saw him on Facebook posting his work, and he was working for Action Labs, which is a smaller publisher. Puts out a lot of more fun, violent, sexy stuff. They're cool, actually. And Marco was doing all kinds of cute, fun, monster stuff, sexy monster ladies, you know. And I kept my eye on him for a little bit, and then I hired him to do a pinup, and it was Wyatt like sleeping in his chair at work with like a cigarette down to the butt with ash, like a nice long old lady ash, like you'd see like in Village Inn back in the day or whatever. And he's falling asleep, and Heidi's about to dump this bucket of monster parts on him, like, and play a prank on him in the office or whatever. And he drew that without many notes from me, and it was perfection. Like, he captured the characters and the comedy and the aesthetic I wanted. And then I had my colorist on the original Monster MD, who was my colorist now, Tanya Wicker, color that pinup. And I knew I had something special. I knew her colors, his art was the type of book I dreamed of making and never felt like I got to, you know, because of budget or whatever. And so I just asked him, I said, and I didn't expect him to say yes. I thought he'd be way too busy. I said, do you want to draw for me? I feel like we can make something special with Monster MD. He said yes. And and the rest is history. He did a cover soon after that. And that's when I was like, this is, you know, I showed it off, and all these pros on Twitter were going, who is this? What is this? This is awesome, you know? So from there, that's where things blew up for Monster MD. And Marco and I have been like great at collaborating ever since, because that's one of the more important things you have to find out. It doesn't even matter how good the artist is if you guys can't collaborate well together.
yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, it's so much of it is about that relationship. So the stuff you were sharing was only black and white stuff. Did you launch the campaign when you had? Did you put together like color promos? Did you have a colorist color his work?
Yeah, I had Tanya color his pages, and then I had her skip ahead to some of the pages that were more action.
Yeah, that's another thing I was going to ask. Did you pick
Yeah.
certain pages that were like,
Yes,
your dream pages? Sell it. We sell dreams.
What sells the dream?
Yeah.
You know, and so we have action pages of him fighting. He's fighting a big clay golem, you know, and it's awesome. And so yeah, it was all I strategized, you know, to make the campaign as cool as possible. So she skipped ahead to a few pages and then went back and to finish the rest. And now we're about 50% in. So yeah.
Yeah, it looks great. I have a couple super chats. Matt Magnum for $2 says, hopefully Sitch plays Carjackers for Jesus. That's one of my shorts. Carjackers for Jesus is a short film that I made, and we're gonna play it on our show. We never seem to get around to it. It's only 4 minutes long, so you guys can look it up.
Oh
if you're
God,
interested.
yeah, I got to see this.
It's about a couple of Jehovah's Witnesses that steal cars for the poor. So it's pretty hilarious. Caffeinated Tweaker for 2 Canadians says, convince Adam to keep the protagonist name Wendell. All my screenplays, I would always pull out these goofy names from like the 1950s because I felt like it seemed more memorable. But I'm in a situation now because like the script that we're turning into a graphic novel was super popular in Hollywood, basically. I mean, we're sending it around town. We had people interested. I had a manager at the time, and the manager told me, you know, write something crazy that will never get made, but people will remember you. So that's what I did. It's called Dick Smashers, which now I don't necessarily know if, like, I'm questioning because I've been in Los Angeles, and I've seen Los Angeles go more towards the social justice end, and now I'm wondering if one of the reasons why it got such play was because it was called Dick Smashers, and that kind of that has like a feminist ring to it, doesn't it? Like Dick Smashers.
Oh God, are you kidding me? It sounds like you came up with that from a tattoo across one of their foreheads or something.
I know. So now now I'm wondering, like, is that why we got so many script requests? Is that why people were so interested in it? And they did coverage on the script, and it was one of the coverages that they got was obviously like a social justice warrior. So I first encounter in Los Angeles with a social justice warrior, but I went back and I looked at the coverage recently, reread it, and they're calling my protagonist a misogynist. I'm like, come on. Everyone else that read the script was talking about my strong female characters and like
Yeah. Yeah.
real human emotion, all this stuff. Like they love the dialogue. But this one reader, and I mean, I went back and I'm like, this is so funny. But I kind of was in the liberal, I would call it the progressive bubble most of my life, just growing up in
Yeah.
California. I had read the book The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt in 2012, and it kind of just, I mean, I guess the conservatives call it red pilling. I don't know that, I think of red pilling as kind of becoming conservative. It kind of just made me more open-minded to the conservative perspective. Like I realized I was really straw manning their point of view. And it's funny because a lot of this is, this is like why I feel like I have such a keen understanding of Comicsgate, because the people in Hollywood and in Silicon Valley, I mean, they really live in these progressive bubbles that it's just the cultural norm is conservatives have some kind of mental illness. And when you have that perspective, you don't really make any kind of attempt to understand them at all. So I
Right.
feel like a lot of that, and I've made, I don't know if you've seen any of my Comicsgate videos, but I've made this point over and over again in the Comicsgate videos that, really we're in this weird situation with storytelling. Well, people have elevated politics over good storytelling. Like they want
Correct.
inclusion, diversity and inclusion in their scripts, which I got to admit, as a lifelong liberal, I'm a little bit sympathetic to, but they're going about it all wrong. Like the
Yeah.
the movie Into the Spider-Verse, I think, is done well because they do it at the same time they have respect for the original characters. And conservatism is really about respect for tradition. Like when Ryan Johnson comes out and just takes a fire hose to tradition, like obviously you're going to get pushback from that. But
Yeah.
the people on the progressive end of the spectrum, they don't realize this. Like it's almost a moral failing in their eyes not to take a fire hose to tradition.
Right.
So
Well, yeah, that's the more radical you are, the more all traditions are holding you back in your mind, and respecting them is respecting a corrupt past and a corrupt
exactly.
and you got to shut it down. And their values have changed from what's a good story and what makes us relate to each other as humans, and they've shifted to what divides us up. We're all different, aren't we? And we all need to be included. And it's become this type of virtue storytelling of and the value of how do we show a woman doing something rather than how do we show a woman like overcome the greatest struggle of her life in a way that makes her a stronger, better person, or more, a more wise person. Like we've forgotten about the internal, and we've instead replaced it with all the things that that politicians use to point out how different we are. And it's like no wonder none of their stories are relatable anymore. No wonder you can but I've seen people try to pretend they enjoy their stories. I've seen people rub their nipples to diversity and go, "Oh yeah, that was so diverse," pretending like this is some new great like style of storytelling. And what's funny about it, I've noticed, is that through doing this new, I almost want to, like when I see things like Force Awakens, I think that they are trying to ham-fistedly create their own style of storytelling, or even genre. You could even argue it's a genre because of all these tropes that they're accidentally creating. The tropes of like all girls are suddenly amazing at science and hacking and building and doing engineering all the time because of the leftist women in STEM movement in our country that everyone's gone insane over and thinks it's like a huge problem or whatever. Like I'm like, what? Or like all these different tropes become really interesting. All girls are friends. all women are more capable than men. Men are kind of, we're more brutal and dumb, and like we need to kind of be told what to do. It's really interesting to watch play out, but I don't think it's gonna last because it just is so unappealing to everyone.
Yeah. Well, the social justice crowd, they're evaluating a movie's merit based on how it moves forward progressive values. So they're judging the movies on completely different criterias. So when you see these
Right.
divergent critic scores, that's exactly what's going on. Like the critics are going in there and going, they're judging on a completely different socio-political criteria, and the normal folks like you and me are judging on whether or not, did this movie move us? Did I have a
Yeah.
moving experience? Did I learn something about life? Did it debate
Yeah.
a point of view honestly and straightforwardly?
Yeah.
Did it take chances and
The
risks?
basics.
Any
I just want some humanity, man. It doesn't even have to be like, there's not a big list for me. I want to relate and get into your character and root for you and whatever. Like
Yeah.
I'm looking at your internal and was it done cool or whatever. They're like, yeah, did this help? Did this have the right messaging is something they're obsessed with.
Oh yeah.
And what's funny is I think that idea is actually not real. Like I don't think it's real because they want to use movies to change our culture.
Yes.
And they're reviewing
totally.
movies with bad reviews now. You should, if you want to laugh or even be a little scared, look up SJW's reviewing the movie Falling Down and see what they say about that movie. Oh, it's insane. They're like, it is a white supremacist fantasy movie. And you're just going, dude, that's not what that movie's about. But it's so interesting because they're trying to use these movie reviews and to change our culture. And they're trying to use films to change how we think and feel. And the idea that they have is, in the end, the creepy part of it is, if we can change people's minds, then we'll be the ones in power. We'll be the ones controlling the way the world is. And it's not going to work, though. Like you can't just brainwash people with movies. That's not how. I don't think that works. You can get people really excited with a movie, and studies have shown that like maybe an hour after the movie or two, they're like pumped up from an action movie or a violent movie, and it just kind of goes away. Like you didn't change their values. You didn't make them not racist or whatever if they're racist.
I'm not sure I completely agree with you, because I feel like Star Trek and Star Wars really drafted a whole generation of people that were interested in technology and like robotics and all kinds of things. They grew up watching science fiction, and they were saying, these are the things that I want to make. But those, I guess there was a lot of politics kind of jammed into Star Trek. I just don't, because I was so young at the time. I was totally unaware that they were brainwashing me.
First televised interracial kiss, like that was a really big moment on Star Trek. But are movies changing our values, or are they reflective of our values at the time? Right, it becomes the age-old question.
I do. Yeah, that's the big question.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about. When I think about movies that inspired me, they inspired me because of feelings and because of caring about characters and loving these characters. I didn't ever go, man, the Goonies were one diverse group of people. You've got Data, and he's the cool Asian, and then you've got Chunk, and he's, body positive, but they make fun of his body the whole time, actually. But you know what I'm saying? I think they want us to view everything through the same prism they do, and it's just.
So do you have a take on the Wendell protagonist name? I know
it sounds like
Comic Book Hut is going to make fun of me if my character's name Wendell.
Is he a nerd? Is he nerdy?
Nah, not really.
Okay. I mean, if he's
not. He's a cool. Are you kidding? No, there's no beta males in my book. Come on.
Wendell sounds like a nerdy name.
He's a backsliding junkie. He's like the cool drug dealer type.
Okay. Yeah, he sounds like he sound like when I hear Wendell, I think nerdy dude.
Yeah.
Like nerdy dude. It doesn't mean he can't be nerdy and then turn into a total badass.
Yes.
Like I've seen, there's stuff like that. When I watched what show is it? The Boys. The main character, Huey. And I mean, that's like kind of
it
like
is.
a cute.
Yeah.
They like there was like Huey, like that's a nerdy name, but he overcomes things, and then you grow to respect it. It's kind of like my theory on band names. Like your band could have the worst name in the world, but if the music's good, people associate that name with greatness. Doesn't really matter in the end. So yeah, I'm gonna say it doesn't matter in the end.
Caffeinated Tweaker
People will
screaming.
relate to him.
This is where we're having. I guess this is where we're having. We're having creative differences because she's in the chat screaming, "No, Wendell's not cool." Like
it's not. It's not. But if you make the character cool enough, people won't even care.
He's got to be cool. He's definitely got to be cool. Matt Magnum for $2 says, "Well, $2 if he does it tomorrow. That's plays Carjackers for Jesus." Yes, we'll force him to. Although he wants to watch a long video tomorrow. We do a podcast every Sunday, so.
Oh, cool, man.
Yeah, a lot of obviously have fans in the chat that are fans of our weekly podcast. I do it with another YouTuber, PSA Sitch. You guys are welcome to look it up. We do it on his PSA Sitch Undaily channel. So Just Mercy for $5 says, "Waiting for the inevitable Carjackers for Jesus crossover with Dick Smashers. Dick Jackers for Jesus." That sounds like something. That sounds like maybe a theme for a war campaign drawing show. Maybe for the next backhold, drawn and backhold. Dick Jackers for Jesus. So Matt Magnum for another $2 says, "Dick Smashers for Jesus, guest star Sitch." Sitch is Jewish, so they're making Jewish jokes. You can't make Jewish jokes though when Sitch isn't here unless we have the Jewish shield. Are you Jewish, Von Klaus? I'm guessing no, but
no.
Okay, so we don't have the immunity.
No immunity card.
So I bought. Adam Post recommended that I read Bob Iger's new book, which I loved because it gives a little peek into this diversity and inclusion stuff at Disney. Bob Iger ran Disney Studios.
Mm-hmm.
And man, he is big for this diversity and inclusion stuff.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you look at his backstory, like he introduces the book with how his first job and that kind of thing. And man, they were throwing jobs at this guy. Like you're reading it and you're going, this guy is the avatar for white privilege. Like when the social justice warriors scream about white privilege, they're talking about Bob Iger. So it makes perfect sense why he would have this guilt complex about, I never worked, like literally he's going, one job he goes into and he's going in to quit. And they're like, we're going to offer you head of the studio. Like, what the hell? I don't know about you, man, but I've never gone in to quit a job and they offer me like boss.
Yeah. You should be running the joint. Oh, okay. I guess I will.
Exactly.
Well, here's the thing about inclusion. When I hear that word, I know it's not like everything they say is a package designed to sound a certain way when the actual contents are not that at all. So when I hear them say inclusion, the implication is that people have been excluded. And you're not including enough people because there's something wrong with you and corrupt with you and but I just see it as a creator, I see that as people just trying to manipulate me to tell me how to write. Like it's like a girlfriend like trying to manipulate me into writing it her way or something. Like it's bitchy, it's bullshit. It doesn't hold any water with me as a creator. Like I don't need to express myself in order to help your political agenda. That's weird. Why would I do that?
Yeah,
and then diversity is weird because I've never really seen any stats on it as improving anything or making anything better. It just seems like a nice way of saying like, we're going to redistribute the money and the wealth and the power to these other groups so you white males can get the hell out of here. And like, it just seems like a nice way of discriminating from what I've seen. I have a job where I film. I make short films and take a lot of pictures, do a lot of photography with my work, and I film things now. And for the first time, I'm starting to be told, make sure you showcase the diversity of the people you're taking pictures of. So, AKA, put brown people in front, put women in front, and make sure they're in every picture. And I just think it's weird. We're advertising. I don't know. It's weird, but at the same time, it's like, I guess being able to see yourself can be good and welcoming to your, whether you think of it or not, to your mind. But another part of me is like, in the end, we're just really helping political agendas over, society or people help, working well together. So yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I don't know if people are going to like read my work and go, how diverse, like Heidi being invisible in Monster MD, for instance. Like, she's invisible. She's a great character though. But there's a moment where like she's tied up and she's a damsel in distress. But there's moments where she fights and like takes people down. You know what I mean? So it's like, how are they going to judge me for it? I look forward to seeing how they do it.
Matt Magnum for $2 wants to correct the record. Not a Jew joke. A joke about him hating your art. Well, he hates all art, though. I think he hates all art.
Do you have a book in the works? Do you have a book coming?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
I don't know if I've seen it or anything.
Yeah, I haven't. I haven't put out really any artwork. I mean, I'm working on a book of my paintings right now, and I'm working on a book at the same time. The book is based off of Dick Smashers. Narwhal has read the script and gave me the seal of approval. He liked it a lot. And
Narwhal's great.
Yeah, but we're changing the name to Drugs, Love, and Armageddon. And it's basically about drugs, love, and Armageddon. So it's about a super drug that turns people into mutants, and a bunch of backsliding junkies basically save the world. So that is the
have you considered the title Super Drug? Just Super Drug. Big letters.
I have. I mean, there is a super drug involved.
Mm-hmm. It kind of drives the plot.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know though, because
love is a super drug too. So you'd have a double. Like, I like titles that capture both meanings, you know what I mean? Or capture multiple aspects of the story.
Sure, totally. I like titles that say what it is. And I worry if it's like super drug, they might think it's a stoner comedy, and it's definitely not a stoner comedy. So,
oh yeah, that's true. It's true. You got to be careful of that.
Yeah, Monster MD is good and clear. So, but I mean, we're still, so much of it is built around, that people want to see that movie poster in their head. So, and we're still working on a solid image for that. So. But I have a number of scripts that I could easily develop, and I've contemplated putting multiple on Indiegogo. Adam Post was saying that you can do like collect email addresses on basically a pitch for up to 6 months. So I notice a lot of, well, maybe you probably notice this in first time screenwriters, and this even applies to me. So I'm not judging here, but most of the time, first-time screenwriters, their script is about them. And my first screenplay was about me too. Like, I'm definitely. Do you fall into this category, or?
My first feature length?
Yeah, your first screenplay.
About me? I mean, let me think. I think my first screenplay was about vampires in the 1930s.
Okay. That's awesome.
And they were like Bonnie and Clyde vampires, and they were robbing a blood bank in Chicago at the end.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It was awesome. So it was my first vampire.
You skipped that portion, so yes.
Well, you know what? No, but let's be fair. I wrote a short script and it was my first short script in film school, and it was about a guy moving into a new place in Chicago for the first time. So that was very me. I was new in Chicago. But he had a freaking ghost in his closet and stuff. So it wasn't me. There you go.
Was it loosely based on you? Maybe you didn't fall out of it.
Yeah, he could have been me. You know what I mean? It could have been me dealing with a ghost, like how I would deal with a ghost, because it was funny, you know?
Are you going to do a
um,
Monsters MD part 2, or are you going to
yeah.
work on something different? Like I think if this
Well,
project is successful, I'll probably do something different, something completely different.
right. Yeah, I'm going to do something completely different first and release that, but then I'm going to do Monster MD 2 and make it just the
Right.
biggest, most epic thing I can.
So it's hard to get away from that when I mean, this at $65,000, this is a hugely successful campaign. So obviously you're going to want to build on that, correct?
Yeah, people have told me just do Monster MD2, make the people happy, keep building your IP. That's the smart thing.
Yeah. As artists,
I,
do we ever do the smart thing?
do I do the smart thing? No, no, no. I'm an
Yeah.
artist. Song in my heart for another book right now, and it's a one-time story. There would never be a part 2. It's going to be a little longer than Monster MD. It's going to be a nice juicy book, and I want to do this, and I'll tell you why. The idea is using a character that exists in public domain. He's free to use.
Mhm.
Old school superhero that no one gives a damn about. The challenge, how do I make him cooler than like any hero on the shelves right now? Some hero everyone overlooks, everyone doesn't care about. People, how do I make him, like, how do I reinvent him into something that people want to read more of, and tell the type of story that I want to tell, a story of a guy fighting against his own darkness. He's a superhero, but he's like a butcher, he's kind of scary. How do we make this work? And also, I haven't told a superhero story in comics yet. All my stuff is always like fantasy crazy. I told one about I did a book that was online for free, actually, about a witch hunter guy in feudalistic Japan who goes from town to town, like a samurai style, and kills the witches and leaves, and he's on the run from the shogunate, of course. So yeah, I do fantasy stuff, but like, let's get into superheroes and let's make it dark and like film noir and awesome. And I'm just too excited about the characters in this and how good the story is. So man, I gotta do it. If I don't, I'm gonna be sad. And Marco already said he would do it. So Marco and I are gonna be working together again. It's like a winning team.
Yeah, the story that I most want to do is this story, Jesus Must Die. It's like a time travel movie about Jesus. Yeah. And no, it's like it'll never work. I know it'll never ever work.
Why not? Why won't it work?
It's
let me count the ways.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're dealing with a sacred subject matter. Like the people that it would hypothetically appeal to are Christians. Jesus. I mean, it's based in the future, and there's like one Christian left on Earth, and he's trying to get a girlfriend, and by getting a girlfriend, he has to convert an atheist to Christianity. So I think that they can relate to that, but aside, like dealing with an actual Jesus being part of the story and stuff like that, they're not going to go for it. And the people who might like it,
people do that all the time in comics.
Yeah, the comics that like a lot of, well, the hardcore atheists want to make comics that disparage believers. Those comics never do well. This is not one of those comics. This is very much like a believer story. So I mean, it might fly. Jesus is like, I grew up a Christian, and Jesus is like was my superhero basically. So it's just me wanting to make that Jesus superhero story. So, but I'm like skeptical it'll ever work. Yeah.
Okay. It sounds fine, man. If you market it the right way to people who, love the Jesus, I don't see how that could go wrong. It doesn't sound like what? Have you ever read Preacher by Garth Ennis?
I haven't. Other people have recommended. I should read it. But doesn't he steer away from he steers away from using, like, Jesus isn't a character in that.
But the descendant of Jesus, who they're trying to keep.
You're right.
Trying to keep the bloodline of Jesus alive by having him inbred. So they keep inbreeding him. And so the guy who's the descendant of Jesus, like, grabs his own poop and throws it at people and drools. And he's a complete monstrous idiot, and they revere him. The people who care for him revere him, but he's like a cross-eyed, like Mongol, like kind of idiot. And he mocks religion in a lot of ways, but it's like there's a spiritual edge to it that is undeniable too. But yeah, so read something by someone who actually had a successful book, and if anything, he was being really, really critical of Jesus and the church and stuff like that. I mean, the whole plot is preachers coming for God, to make him answer up, give some answers.
Let's dive a little bit into story. I've obviously written a bunch of scripts. I've written with other collaborators. I've written by myself. What is kind of your process from going to idea to finished script?
I keep it fun and simple. It starts as notes. I'm going to write all the ideas that are coming to me as I think about this, as just, and they don't have to be in any order, just like a bullet point list of all these cool ideas. And then when I get enough of those ideas, I start to see something developing, and that's structure. And so then I start plugging those ideas into a 3-act structure.
So are you looking for scenes, like set pieces? Is that what you're saying? Moments?
Well, it could just be moments. It could even be as simple as a good line for the character. Because I come up, like, for instance, what I'm working on right now is called Terror in the Trenches, and it's about the free to use character Black Terror, who's never been done right, in my opinion, and I'm going to do him right. And actually, Dynamite Comics has just come out with #1 issue, new issues of Black Terror being written by Max Bemis, and they're absolutely dismal, absolutely awful. And it just lit a fire under me to write this even more, to do a really good job with him and make this character cool. And I came up with the idea of what would it be like to walk into usually it starts with a cool big idea for me. So what would it be like to walk into your neighborhood that you know and love, that that pizza place you like to go to, that's tacos, whatever, your park, your local, all kinds of things, maybe your church, whatever. What would it be like to walk into that and all of its ashes, and it's all rubble, and the rubble has formed these kinds of trenches you can move through, where everything you loved and used to know and all your neighbors are gone. Everything used to be there, but it's just trenches now for warfare. And Black Terror as a character fought in World War II back in the day. I mean, that's when he was invented. He fought the Nazis. And so what would it be like for him to return to the trenches he used to fight in World War II, when he had lived a life trying to get over the war and live a life of peace as a pharmacist and a caretaker to his local neighborhood? What would it be like to fight in the ashes of what you used to know? And what's close to you and dear to you. So that idea drove me to make this story where I put Black Terror in that scenario where vengeful Nazis from his past come. They've bombed his neighborhood to near ashes. It's rubble and ash, and he's moving through the trenches, finding them and killing them, and taking on all kinds of crazy characters in the story. So that's where I started. And that is that idea, the excitement of that concept keeps me going and keeps me writing. So I start coming up with all these ideas from that premise, if you will. That's where the notes come from. And then, like I said, I'll start plugging in scenes and ideas from there. And I start kind of coming up with characters from there too. And then I will, because I know I'm going to redo my 3-act structure. So it starts off as kind of a skeletal 3-act structure where I kind of pick what the best turning points need to be that are going to hit me hard, but that's still subject to change. I keep things very open. And then I come up with what I hope is a really solid structure. And another thing that keeps me going is I look up images too. And I make a folder of inspirational images or images to show my artists later. Or just to inspire me, because I like to draw my own character designs too. It has to be, my style, if you will, because I'm developing my own books. I mean, it might as well be my style. So it's a lot of character design work. I even make logos. One thing I recommend that people do is make a cool logo or movie poster for your project as kind of a goal to get to that finishing point, because that becomes like a finish line to see it
I totally come to fruition. I totally agree.
It's fun. Have you made any?
Yeah, totally. Well, I'm often when I'm conceiving of a project, I usually start with a log line, but I immediately jump to what's the movie poster for this because it's such an important part of marketing anything. Do you
Yeah.
do a treatment as well? Like my process is usually log line to treatment. And until I've figured out the ending of the movie, I really don't feel like I have a story because I at the end of a story, often feel like any good movie or story is a debate over a point of view. And until you know, like until you know where you're going to come out on that debate,
Yeah.
usually it's a some mysterious third option that nobody conceived of is the best way to get a surprise ending. And there really has to be surprise in that ending. So and
Yeah.
that's the hardest thing to work out until I feel like I've had that. And then sometimes, I that ending ends up being better than I'd ever imagined, and you kind of have to reconceive everything along the way to kind of dial in that ending. So
As long as the ending has the climax, like the ultimate point of tension and decision making, the
yeah,
hardest
totally.
moment for my hero, I'm good with it. That's more satisfying. And lately, I've been enjoying a false victory towards the end,
Yeah,
and then it turns out there's something else. So that gives me that more surprising ending.
right.
As a technique, false victories are great. Like end your second act with this, like, oh, and then everything's okay, right? No, it's not. It's worse than you thought.
That's a tough
Um,
one to pull off because normally the second act ends on a down note, the dark night of the soul type of uh,
yeah,
you know, w- questioning your place in the hierarchy in life. Will your hero
yeah,
survive? That's usually the way they go into the third act. So, I mean, that
yeah.
false victory is a
I
tough
just did
one.
a Yeah, I just did it and I liked the way it came out with Black Terror. It's coming out great. So, but yeah, I haven't done it. I haven't done it often. Usually it's a down note.
Yeah.
um, but what else? What was I going to say about that? I forgot what I was going to get
I
into
love
about
the ironic endings, and they're so difficult to
endings.
pull off. Where
Oh yeah,
the hero wins but loses, like they win but they die,
yeah,
because it's so you're
yeah,
like, oh, he succeeded but lost anyway. I love
yeah.
those
Well,
endings.
if that's your character's
Yeah,
story, if that's the best version of your character, do it.
yeah.
Kill them.
My
Like if
story has a total happy ending. Like I'm a sucker for happy endings.
yeah,
So, but I
me
like
too.
darker movies than I actually write. Like I love that movie Children of Men, which has the perfect ironic ending. Like he does succeed, but he ends up dying in the end. Spoiler alert, guys.
Yeah.
The movie's
Spoiler.
like I think 10 years old. So, but yeah.
That's a
So
good one.
yeah, definitely.
Um, yeah, I'm a ray of hope at the end of the tunnel type of guy with my stories. I think that's classic and fun and feels good. So it's about what feels good when I create. So I have that sliver of hope, no matter how dark my story is. Monster MD is a feel good story, no
Is
matter
it
how
feel
dark
good?
it
It feels like it is a feel good story, is it not?
is. It is. It
Yeah.
it's feel good, but with a lot of like your darkest moments and a lot of almost getting eaten by monsters. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I guess back to story crafting. I don't do a treatment. I almost did a treatment for my recent story, but I just do bullet points and then I do my structure. And yes, starting with a log line is a great idea because once you get that, it's like a compass that keeps you on the right track throughout your entire script.
Yeah, I
You know
think the reason I go to
out.
treatments is just for efficiency because it always seems like the treatment is the first thing. Like if someone's interested in the script, the first thing they ask for is like a summary. So you have the
Yeah,
summary before that you can complete. Like it's so usable in trying to sell a script or marketing your script. So,
yeah,
but
yeah.
Just Mercy for $2 says don't listen to Max. It's not Max, it's Matt, but we'll let it pass. Don't listen to Max. It was a dog whistle. I love that they're fighting over this in the super chats. That's great, guys.
Awesome.
Aaron Olson, who I believe is a Comicsgate fan, For $1.99 says, where should indies be crowdfunded? Online shops? Do you have a specific answer to that, Klaus?
Where should they be funded?
Yeah.
I mean, I like what we're doing on Indiegogo, but I would recommend building your, if you want to make a career out of it, get a website and start selling your stuff, man.
I guess he's wording
They're
is,
talking about?
where should indies be? Question mark. Crowdfunded online shop. So I guess he's saying,
Oh, I see.
yeah, where should it be? I mean, the crowdfunding model is interesting, and I haven't really done anything with crowdfunding. I feel like maybe I should, just simply because, I'm an artist. I'm selling my own stuff. It seems like a comfortable fit. The shops model, I wonder about that. And I know that a lot of artists want to get their comics into comic book stores, but I don't know if comic book stores are going to be around. I feel like it's kind of like trying to get your movie into Blockbuster. I feel like maybe it's a thing of the past.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, I feel that too. I'm not worried about being in shops. It'd be nice to be in them, but I don't consider that one of my main goals, I guess. For me, it's about making my product and selling it, generating the funds for it with crowds right now. People have talked to me about Monster MD getting published, getting under a publisher and getting into to shops. I still haven't greenlit anything or said yes. I'm just trying to figure out, like, does that help me in the comic book world or not? Or can I just keep doing my own thing? Brian Pulido with Lady Death is in both. He's definitely in the crowdfunding and he's big in the crowdfunding. And I go to a shop and I see Lady Death books.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that hurts. I think that might even, if you advertise it in the books, it might even help, with people finding you online and stuff. And he runs a big online store too. So it's like, think of it as spreading yourself out everywhere you can, even if shops are kind of, on the downhill slope. My shop literally charges me an extra fee if I use a credit card. So that way they don't have to pay the credit card fees that businesses pay or whatever. They're like, it's going to be about 2%, 2 point something percent of what you paid for these books, like, is going to be added. And I'm just like, man, you guys must be really hurting, man.
Yeah. That's great that he's everywhere. I feel like however popular your IP is will fill up those potential avenues of sales. I don't know that I'm going to, I'm working on an original IP. I don't necessarily know that those avenues will be open to me, but I encourage people to do that, definitely. So, but Aaron Olson is also saying, what is the future of indie comics?
Oh,
and I kind of feel like it is dealing directly with the creator. And I've seen this also just in the gallery scene, because, and I know this myself, I've turned down shows at galleries because the gallery takes 50%. And if I'm selling the majority of my artwork directly to collectors, I'm making twice as much money. So, and I do see there are group shows and whatnot that bigger artists than me contribute to, and I don't feel like they're sending their best work to the gallery because they know that there's that 50% cut. Like, if they can sell directly to a collector, they're obviously going to sell their best work, and even they can give their collectors better deals and still make more money. So they're kind of writing the retailers out of the equation in the fine art business. I see there are definitely parallels with all kinds of places like movie making, and I think comics could be one of those places. I often wonder if the big comic book artists are going to leave like the big two and start doing their own stuff. They are a bit, aren't they?
They are. We're watching it happen in real time right now. We have people like Sean Gordon Murphy talking about their next crowdfunding campaign. Very interesting time for indie comics, and I love it. the spirit of comics has always been rebellious. I mean, we've had the government come after comics before. We've had giant comic book burnings in like the 1950s. We had the 70s where like comics were just these, or there were a lot of punk style comics, and this like British invasion happened. There's all this awesome stuff happening. And that's why it's so exciting, man. But like, if you have to pick a future for them, people are always going to make them, no matter what's going on. Is what I think is cool. Whether they're just crappy Xeroxed ones, or these days with the internet, people put them online and gather a following, and then crowdfund the collected version and make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Sometimes, I mean, it's amazing right now. I know other Oklahoma artists like myself who have comics that have made tons of money, but the comic itself is free online, but once you publish it in physical form, the fans will show up. So you can actually make a living out of it more easily than probably ever before, which I think is pretty remarkable. You don't have to rely on the shops,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You're able to, and I think people enjoy it more buying directly from the artist, directly from the creator without that middleman, because they feel like they have a relationship with you that they don't necessarily have. When I first moved to Los Angeles, like we would go to galleries all the time, but it was really before the crowdfunding thing got big, and it was before all these social media platforms popped up where you could have a relationship directly with your fans through Instagram or Twitter or any of these social media platforms. It's funny, you go to the galleries now and it's almost a direct correlation. You look at the prices on the wall and what the paintings are selling for, and then you look them up on Instagram and it totally correlates with their social media following. So if it's a great like economic, basic economics principle, right? If you have more people competing for your work, obviously you can sell your work more for more money. So it's really fascinating. And then I go to a lot of galleries and stuff like that are, well, they're not really galleries, they're museums, right? They're the historical stuff, and I look at the paintings and whatnot and I think, man, this would get like 3 likes on Instagram. This stuff is terrible. The artwork we have now is just so, oh man, it's great.
Yeah, I think here's the thing about comics. They appeal to, there's a lot of different comics for a lot of different people with a lot of different tastes, but overall, when it comes to the big popular ones that everyone kind of nods and agrees on and wants to own and put on their shelf, there's a certain flavor there that you're not going to get out of the big corporate Disney stuff. And Disney's going to go more corporate than ever now that Kevin Feige is going to be heading up Marvel and how it produces stuff in the form of movies, basically, and stuff that, I mean, who knows what he'll do? There's always that little hope of me that these guys are kind of rebellious behind the scenes and try to do cool things, but let's face it, like, it's a numbers game, and it's all about, these days with Bob Iver or whatever, diversity and in comics, it's become kind of the nerdy thing. It's become and not nerdy in the way that comics are cool and nerdy like we are, but in the way that it's not cool anymore. It's not hip. It's not fun. It's not cutting edge. It's not pushing envelopes. It's not trying new things to win people over. It's just, I don't know, bland oatmeal, and that's when that happens, the indie creators come out. We step up, and we always are the pendulum swinging the other way, and we start making crazy things, creative things. And people, I think, are responding really well to it. And we're just seeing the beginnings.
Yeah,
with
I like
Comicsgate.
Disney destroying Star Wars is actually an opening for us, because if Star Wars was running on all cylinders, they would be cranking out Star Wars comic books. Like their declining sales is really helpful for indie creators to get a foot in the door. So, and I love it. I love seeing people make their own stuff. It's awesome. I was a zine guy back in the days. I used to like photocopy zines all the time. I love doing that stuff.
Yeah, man, I'd submit my poetry to the local zine.
Yeah.
We have a zine called A Slut, because Tulsa, I live in Tulsa. A Slut backwards, Tulsa backwards is A Slut.
Really?
Like, you can find my comics and my poems, my dark poems, and the zines. Yeah, it was fun, man. It's a good time. But yeah, that's what's so cool though about Star Wars failing. Cause I'm very sad about Star Wars, what's happened as a guy who's loved it since I was a kid. And I was like, where's our silver lining? Well, the silver lining is that artists like me need to step up and remind people about what good storytelling is. So we can get back on that. That's why I always say Hollywood needs a new Spielberg, like a new, like really talented guy who knows how to make really entertaining, like mass appeal stuff that will like make so much money with this one movie that Hollywood will then do what it does, go, hey, look at that. Let's all make that, and they shift, from the current trends. But who knows? Maybe ideology is and need to be virtuous and social justice is stronger. But I'd like to think that it's not, that at the end of the day, money and just good old fashioned storytelling is where it's at. And that's what I'm doing with my books to see if I can prove that theory, I guess.
Yeah, they're trying to serve two masters, and I don't know if they're going to figure it out. They might figure it out. We'll see.
That's a good point.
How much do you like Metalocalypse? I noticed you're wearing a Death Clock shirt.
I dig it. I like it. I like it enough to buy a Death Clock shirt.
I love Metalocalypse. That's so. It's one of my favorite shows on Adult Swim. So, yeah.
Good call.
So we've been talking for about an hour and a half. I don't know. Maybe we can leave it here. Did we miss anything? Should I have asked you anything that you feel like?
No, man. I really enjoyed talking to you. It was great, and I love getting to talk to other screenwriters. I actually was going to ask you about your method for making a good log line.
I try to use the word must, because I feel like scripts are really about something that somebody has to do, whether they just personal drive or they're being forced to do it. So I always try to use the word must in a log line, and I try to include a setting, a protagonist, and the goal. So that to me is what makes a good log line. So.
And a good antagonist, like the things that are
sometimes
fighting them.
It's not, this antagonist is not as essential. Sometimes the antagonist is the environment. But yeah, in a world where blank, so-and-so must blank.
Right.
So, and I usually go off there. I have like I said, when I had a manager, they made us do like 40 log lines, 40 to 60 log lines. I can't even remember because I was just doing log lines for days and days and days. And I was, so I'd feed them to my manager. My manager would give me feedback on them. And like managers in Hollywood know a lot of what's going around. So they'll say, there's 20 scripts like this that are never going to get made. So they can give you feedback that way as well. But logline is super important because logline becomes the marketing. So logline, what that poster is. They also, a lot of times, saying, something meets something. Like our project kind of evolved into Train Spotting meets Zombieland. So that's the pitch that they were giving people. Yeah. So
That's tricky. Some certain stories, it's great when you can just hit people with what you're making with that something meets something.
Yeah.
Other stories, it doesn't work as well.
No,
like I see people like combining things, and all it does is add to confusion. You got to be careful,
Yeah, totally. I always make the joke of like, Schindler's List meets Your Highness. Like it's two things that would totally not go together. But I see that. It's funny because it's kind of a joke, but I see scripts like that I think, wow, this really is Schindler's List meets, Dazed and Confused, which nobody should ever make that movie. So, do you
Schindler's Spliff?
Yeah, exactly. Do you spend a lot of time on log lines? I mean, a lot of people in Hollywood are kind of obsessed with log lines. Sometimes you make a first draft too that you just get lucky, and then it'll get a lot of this is why I was laughing at the beginning when you were talking about people rewriting your script. Like you'll get as soon as you option a script, if you're not a produced screenwriter, which I'm not, the first thing is they want to kind of weasel a free rewrite out of you to get talent interested, because until you get some big name attachments to your script is really going nowhere. So that's really the first step in Hollywood these days. And stars control everything. Like, you get an attachment. I have a friend that has a TV show now that's been in development at CBS for, I mean, it's probably been like 2 years, but he's had really big name talent attached to the script, and that's what fuels it along. As soon as they can say, you know, so and so is developing this, then
Yeah.
it's kind of the fire to keep it going. He came out with a really like an amazing sizzle reel, and that's what got people hooked on it, because you can send this little 2-minute video to anyone and they'll look at that and go, this looks fantastic, you know, I want to be involved. The Starblades has an amazing video involved. Yeah. So I want to do, on my project, I'm going to do something of comparable quality to Starblades, because I can. Yeah, I know After Effects, and I mean, I don't use After Effects as much anymore. I use DaVinci Resolve, but I know how to do special effects and that kind of stuff. So I'm definitely going to do a kick-ass compilation video to sell it. So those sizzle reels really get a lot of projects going these days in Hollywood. And I know even actors do sizzle reels all the time. Sometimes they're not the best, but a good sizzle reel is everything. How did you? I mean, I'm embarrassed to say I don't even think I've watched your video. I actually, you know, I think I did watch your video, but there wasn't any narration or anything in it. It's just music, correct?
No, my video's narration.
Oh, there is narration. So I didn't watch it then. So how did you put together your video?
I watched a lot of other campaigns videos, and everything about my campaign was about a few different, I don't know, commandments, if you will. And it was, how do I make the customers happy and excited and give to them? And how do I throw out all the crap that I don't like about certain campaigns that kind of bogs them down or makes them, you know, confusing, and just do what I like do what I like to see as a customer. So like, I wrote a script and sat down like right before my campaign launched, broke up with my fiance.
What? Oh my God.
I had a breakup. Oh my
right God.
The campaign. And I had to like grit my teeth and go, I'm going to do this campaign. It's going to be the best thing I've ever done. And I did that video, man. When you listen to that video, I am a freshly broken man. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to get through this and it's going to be awesome. And I did it. I did a good job on that video. And a lot of people have come to me and said that they've used that video as a template. And I've been hired to direct and cut a few other people's videos. I do video editing for my full-time job. So I'm not like some super pro or anything, but I love doing it and I love being good at it. I made a pretty decent video. I don't think it's some high production value one. Some of the campaigns these days have some of the best high production animation and all kinds of funny, cool stuff. And it's great. I knew I couldn't do that. I'm pretty like, you know, meat and potatoes kind of dude when it comes to that. So I kept it simple, but made it fun. I had Vosto, who's an electronic music artist, do the soundtrack. So it comes out awesome. And a lot of people copied what I did. But yeah, I just wrote a script that I think would get people pumped and excited. And I think it came out pretty decent for what I did.
I mean, your campaign is completely successful. So I don't you have to say that it's it worked. It definitely worked. Yeah. I guess you're thinking, could my campaign have done double? I don't know.
I mean, I approached it like I was a professional in comics, even though I knew I wasn't, but that was the attitude I wanted to have. So, because I think that reflects on your campaign. And I approached it like, this is a $100,000 book.
Yeah.
And Ethan actually told me this is a $100,000 book when he looked at my campaign. I was like, you're awesome. Thank you. That's what I was going for. So it's in how you present a lot of ways. Yeah. Could it have done more? Maybe, I don't know if I had done more. I don't know much about advertising. Maybe if I had done more, you got to get eyes on it. That's definitely
Yeah,
part of the
that's
key to this.
important. That is important. But you have to have, ultimately, people are buying the product. So you can
Right.
direct a bunch of eyeballs. And this is where I think kind of the anti-Comicsgate crowd is misinformed, because they seem to think that you can go on Ethan's channel and get a bunch of eyeballs on your campaign, and that's immediately going to translate into sales. It's not. If people don't want the book, they're not going to buy the book. This
100% right.
Yeah, so tell us what you mean by $100,000 book, because I mean, I'm looking. I've said the same thing about Ethan's Cyberfrog book. Like, it's some of these books I don't feel like they're books that I would see the big two put out. They don't feel like professional level books. Your book definitely, I mean, it feels like a professional level book. Ethan's book feels like a professional level book. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying that as a dig, because there are indie comics that I love. Like, there are all kinds of books that are
Oh
drawn in
yeah.
different styles. Particularly,
Oh yeah.
I think Saga is really popular. I'm not a huge fan of the artwork, but I know people love it. So I don't necessarily think you have to have that comic book style and have a successful book. But I think there's if you're not there's a certain amount of authority that goes with being backed by one of the big publishers, that I think you can get away with having artwork that's a little bit more arty, let's say, a little bit more indie, that I don't know that you have that leeway when you actually are indie, because you have
Yeah.
more, you honestly have more to prove. So it seems like your artwork needs to be more something comparable to something you'd see in the comic book store. How do you feel about that? And where do you stand on that?
Wow, great question. It's so interesting, that balance of art that's not great, but it's so well written, no one cares. And then
Yeah.
art that's so good that they don't care how badly it's written, and finding that sweet spot in comics. What when I hired Marco, I told everyone, I said, my book's going to be professional. It's going to look professional. It's going to be so that does is it makes you stand out in the world of indie comics. There's nothing wrong with books where people are still learning, or they're more artful and artsy. In fact, like, some of the greatest comic books of all time are like these, like, jagged, crazy, bizarre messes of art. I just read Grant Morrison's Arkham Asylum, and that's like, it's he invented the Nine Inch Nails music video before Nine Inch Nails did with that book. I mean, it's just this awesome, bizarre, twisted, surreal book. They just went balls to the wall crazy with it, and that's part of the fun of comics. I mean, you could do that, and people will embrace it. Even longtime Batman fans probably loved it, even though it was so bizarre. I don't think you even see Batman's eyes once in the book. It's just pure shadow,
Interesting.
griminess. It's really cool. But yeah, it's something that I think indie needs to keep alive, is those artful, fun books, while the big guys in the shops. But that doesn't mean you won't go into a shop and find that. So do what works for your book. For me, Marco was the perfect thing for my book. And the guy I worked with before, like I said, he was very indie in his art, and like still not pro, but he wasn't terrible. But it still wasn't the book I had envisioned. There was still this. The thing that's fun about it, though, is I put it online for free, the original Monster MD, and people were going, man, I'm a fan of this. Like, there were fans and people writing me to tell me how much they liked it. So it was.
So what was the matter? What was the different? Was the artwork not like professional looking? It didn't look finished. What was the conflict there?
Well, it looked finished in the beginning of the book, and then as the guy seemed to like hate me, I don't know why he started to like hate me. He might have had personal things going on, but yeah, he's turned in sketchy work. His work looked more like an old woodcut, was his style, like a lot of cross hatch.
Okay.
A lot of cross hatch, a lot of like thick, heavy black lines, and a lot of blacks. And I thought it was cool. Like, I thought it was kind of hip. It had a nice texture to it. I thought it had kind of a griminess that would go well with Monster MD and how grimy I wanted the book to look. But yeah, it just wasn't. And I was just approaching it as something I do for fun that I could maybe grow into something later. I wasn't sweating it too much. I was just enjoying it. And because I had to tell this story. It's one of those stories for me, Monster MD. I had to do it. I was like moving at the time and living in Chicago and renovating my parents' old apartment up there for them, and so that they could sell it. And I was still making Monster MD on the side and like doing all this comic work because it was just so much fun. So, but yeah, sorry, I'm getting off track, but it's very cool to just do it and not worry about the art too. But when I met Marco and saw what he could do, I knew I could do the version I really wanted to do and make it professional. So I don't judge people harshly if the art isn't super blowing my mind professional. I want to get into your characters and story, and you have the ability to do that with the right words and the right guide, to draw me in. So
yeah, I definitely agree with you there. It is a balance. It's completely a balance. And I mean, I love doing this stuff. So I mean, it's so much fun. I'm actually doing some drawing, and obviously I'm an artist myself, so
yeah.
Are
you writing in comic book script format? Are you
I am
learning
not,
the format?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
See, I rough out the book basically, and then I pass it off to Steph, and Steph develops it, and we kind of back and forth on the development.
Okay.
So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always like kind of a whatever works for you kind of guy. But on my journey, it went from I'm going to write it as a screenplay, and then he's just going to draw it. But I have to do the panels, like I have to, and I've recently gotten really into comic book format, and I'm really enjoying it.
So actually, you're writing in comic book format, and you're not touching the pages at all. You're just passing him a comic book script. Carl in the very beginning said something interesting. He said something good about how the moments are really about how much real estate on the page you're giving them, which I intuitively figured out pretty early on. I was like, okay, this is a big moment. This should be a full page. This should really have some devotion to it.
The bigger it is, the harder you want it to hit. And so that I will direct my artist in my script. I'll say huge panel, or I'll just do a brilliant splash page. Yeah, it's part of the way you control the audience's emotions in the journey. So that's why I feel like, because I tested it. I did a comic with a guy where I just wrote screenplay format, and he drew it. All the big moments weren't big. He picked different moments to be big.
Yeah.
I can't do that. Like it's got to be. It's got to be the way I see it. So, but I'm using this great software. I don't know if you're into like script software, but it's called Superscript that formats it into a comic book script for you really easily. So highly recommended.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm using Final Draft, just doing a script, and I'm laying out the pages, kind of doing a thumbnail of the pages, and tossing them off to Stephanie, who develops them further. So much of this stuff is the kind of character design too, and we kind of jumped in without really. I mean, we had kind of a general idea of the characters, and figured just roughing out the pages, we would develop the characters as we went. So, but now I think we've got several of the characters kind of dialed in, and I don't know that we've really ironed out our protagonist yet. Obviously, Steph and I are arguing in the comments here about whether or not he's cool, which is like not the best.
I mean, if you want people to think that's a cool dude from the start, then Wendell doesn't help. But it doesn't, in the end, the story and what he, his candor, his what he achieves, whatever, it'll make people hopefully dig him.
Yeah. You got it. It's very important to have a likable protagonist. And maybe I'll just say this because Caffeinated Tweaker is Steph in the chat, and she's saying that Wendell starts off in one place and ends up in another. And this is rookie move number one that screenwriters often make, and their career never goes anywhere because they can't figure it out. But your protagonist needs to be likable from page one. The idea that you're going to have a protagonist that his character arc is going to be from asshole to Mother Teresa is not going to get anyone to read your script, because they're going to close your script on page one. They're going to say, this guy's an asshole. Why do I want to spend an hour sitting here reading the script about a guy who's a jerk? So, I mean, if you're Go
as
ahead.
good as it gets. As good as it gets.
Yeah, I
How do
was gonna
they? I
say,
always wonder how
you
they
know,
pull that off.
if you're making a movie where Jack Nicholson is already involved, like you've got a bona fide celebrity that's going to come in who's semi known for playing an asshole. Yeah, it might work. You might be able to pull your movie off.
Yeah, but
But
it's rare.
yeah, and I mean, let's face it, uh if you're starting off, your father-in-law is not a movie exec or a studio head or something like that. I mean, you're really trying to get people to read your script. That's the most important thing. So
Yeah.
I see this a lot in first-time screenwriters. Like they think a character arc is someone that goes from an asshole. Like you need your character. You can't have the character flaw be something that's a turn off to the audience, because the audience
Right.
wants to root for your protagonist. I mean, it's super important. It's super important that your protagonist is likable. So
Yes, no doubt. And
yeah.
yeah, give them the think of flaws as something that we can all relate to
Yeah,
instead of just
exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
It's the flaw. You know, when they say you go into the job interview and you want to say, well, they always ask you, what is your flaw? Oh, I work too hard.
Yeah. I'm just too committed to what I doubt.
Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
self-doubt is something that people can relate to. Self-doubt is a common one. But at the same
Hmm.
time, I mean, you want to know that this is the guy that's going to help his neighbor, when they have to move. You want to know that he's like the nice guy. Movies typically throw that in there somewhere. Like I'm always looking for the moment, because it's a typical in movies now for you to see that this protagonist has a functioning moral compass from the get-go. They usually include a scene that gets you over that hump immediately. I'm assuming, I mean, Monster MD's, like, first of all, he's already got MD going for him, which
Mhm.
doctors save people's lives. That's what they do for a living.
Yes,
So, I mean,
that's right.
that's a likable aspect. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you go in the, what's that Cronenberg movie where they got the doctors that are just like terrible human beings? That's a horror movie. I don't know if your movie's a horror movie or your comic's a horror comic.
It's a
There's horror
horror comic, but
elements.
it's a lot of comedy. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a horror comic with a lot of comedy, but a lot of heart, a lot of humanity. Yeah. What is that Cronenberg? Dead Ringers or no? That's the twins movie. But let me think about this. He's a doctor. You like him, but he's helping a werewolf in the beginning, and he punches the werewolf. So because the conflict in the story is like he kind of wants out of his job. He doesn't think he has what it takes anymore.
Okay, so
He's
he's
starting to think that
uncertain of himself.
yes.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, he wants to quit. He doesn't know if he has what it takes. And his story as a character is interesting because he was on his way before becoming a monster doctor to being this like revered genius surgeon, and everything was going to work out great for him in life. And then everything went wrong. And you're going to find out about that in the story. I won't reveal it. But so he's already lost when it comes to treating humans. Now he's kind of considers himself, because of his arrogance a little bit too, at the bottom of the barrel treating monsters, and he's sick of that. He doesn't think he even has what it takes for that. He kind of wants out. He's sick of almost getting eaten every other day. So he has to come to terms with that and realize that maybe instead of thinking you're above it or maybe not good enough for it and you're full of doubt, maybe you're right where you belong. Maybe you are more connected to the monsters than you are the people. So it becomes an outsider story a little bit too.
Yeah, that's great. That's totally great. I'm hooked.
I love stuff like that.
Yeah, you gotta. Yes, very important to have a likable protagonist. So I guess we'll go ahead and
Yes.
leave it here. I mean, unless you have
Yeah.
any more
No.
questions for me, I guess kind of covered. You can always come
Good.
back. Yeah,
Yeah, I'd love to, man. It was fun.
this was
Love getting to
great.
talk to real deal writers who know what they're talking about and have all the inside stuff on Hollywood. I at one point my life was going to lead me there, so it's always very interesting.
Well, there was one of the anti Comicsgate people was giving us a hard time on Twitter, and I don't know if you saw it or not, but he was like, "Why would you ever want to take story writing advice from these guys?" I'm like, "We're not forcing this advice on you."
No,
I
no,
tweeted.
but well, oh, what did you say?
I tweeted out my reel, which is Social Justice Detective. It's a story that I wrote, directed, and edited. So, I mean, I have a reel. You're welcome to look at it if you're interested.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, man. I'd love to. But yeah, I didn't know people were giving you a hard time. Well, that's a weird thing for them to say, but then again, it isn't weird because they are kind of pseudo critics of us. It's more about attacking,
That's awesome.
more about attacking us, than anything. And then they call it criticism, but that's not real deal criticism.
It's not at
taking
all.
story advice from a screenwriter is a good thing to do if they know their stuff, because they're going to teach you the basics really, really well. That 3-act structure, character development, good turning points and how they work and how to make them effective, how to write scenes that have all the elements of a scene that make it interesting and compelling. It moves the story forward, it has tension, and it re-asks the overarching question of, will he be able to achieve XYZ? These are all important things to learn because they make you a better writer, dude. I don't know why you question that. You don't have to take the advice. Like you said.
Well, I think they're making, I mean, you're right. It's totally unfounded criticism. They're saying, you should take advice from Steven Spielberg. Like, I don't know. Is Steven Spielberg giving writing advice? And we're just like two dudes on the internet talking shit.
Maybe
so,
he'll give us a master class or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Stupid master classes. No, I think you should take advice where you can find it. That's all. And people who are in the game and actually playing Hollywood, like, I want to hear from them. So I don't know. Well,
I've read hundreds of screenplays from screenwriters, and not good ones, from screenwriters that want to make it, because I've run Deadline Junkies. It's a screenwriters lab here in Los Angeles. I've run it for 10 years. So I've read hundreds of people's first scripts, people's 10th script, people's 6th script. And I mean, a lot of patterns come out from that. Like, a lot of people think that their script is super original. This is like, all the stuff in here is super original. And it's very rare to see a script that is super original. Like, you'll read a bunch of people's first time scripts and they're very similar to one another. So I think that experience is good experience in and of itself. A lot of people will try to learn by reading, they'll read all of Quentin Tarantino's scripts. They'll read all of Robert Rodriguez's scripts. They'll read all the absolute best screenwriters that you can find. And those are good. Like, I've read all those scripts too. Reading an amazing screenplay really shows you how to do it right. But you can learn so much from reading the people that are doing it completely wrong too, because you're like, I don't want to make that mistake. And you're often saying, well, I am making that mistake over and over and over again. Why is it so easy for me to see this terrible thing in this other person's script, but I totally ignored in my own script? It's like,
it's
please.
Amazing. And that's why it's so great to get that second set of eyes on your script, man, and get
definitely.
critique you. It's so important. I love my editor from Monster MD because he called out everything that confused him. He was like, I don't get it, and like, it made me re-question it and go, oh yeah, I need to polish that. I need to fix that up. It's great. Yeah. Watching people like fall flat on their face. Yeah. But isn't that interesting how you said that? Like, everybody wants to do something original. How about this? How about do something that people can go, oh, that's just Die Hard meets, like Holiday in Rome or Roman Holiday or whatever. Like, no, like, hold up. Like, let's not worry about originality. To me, your personal fingerprint is on everything you do, regardless of how much it's like something else. But let's understand that story elements will all, it's like cooking. It's like cooking to me. Like, you take all the same ingredients someone else does, but you can make something totally different, right?
Yeah,
but
totally.
But will you make something that's tasty, or are you so worried about it being original that it's going to taste like dog ass? You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly.
No, make it tasty and make it simple and make it to the point. And it's okay if it's like other dishes they've had. They're still going to enjoy it.
Yeah, you want to tell a compelling story, and there's a reason why there is this kind of format. A lot of people want to break the format, but like sooner or later you're not really telling a story. I mean, confusion is the ultimate thing that you're fighting against. And even
Right.
as experienced writers, you're still fighting against confusion. Even
Well,
just doing YouTube, like making YouTube
yeah.
videos, you discover, wow, I said that in a way that totally confused people. Like they took it completely wrong, and you kind of
Yeah.
learn to modify as you go. So, I mean,
It's you have to pay attention to other people and point of views to learn how to connect with them,
yeah,
you know? Because you're writing from your point of view and that might connect with you, but other people, yeah, I'm all the time I say things and it's like I didn't mean that, dude. Yeah,
yeah.
um it's interesting. You could be like what's his name, the guy that did Lost and is now doing Watchmen, Damon Lindelof, and just you can embrace confusion and make it like your style. Like I'm confused by everything he makes, and I don't think he cares about that. I don't think he cares. And
Well,
what do you?
at a certain point, these people are so big that they're kind of, you must watch their stuff to just be a part of the culture. So I
Yeah,
think there are certain, like Quentin Tarantino can pretty much get away with anything. But I mean, I like his movies a lot, but he has a
yeah,
huge latitude that other people don't necessarily have. And sometimes I feel like there's the
yeah.
guy, Richard Kelly, who did Donnie Darko. Donnie Darko was a huge success. And I've actually, I shared a manager with Richard Kelly for a while. So I know his work very well. And he kind of got the, like, you can do anything treatment, I feel, too early in his career. And he ended up doing a bunch of movies that were just completely confusing. And
Right.
it's funny, I don't even know if he's really doing anything now. He's probably writing scripts, but
Yeah, I mean, the only story I ever heard about that guy was that he'd be at meetings and he'd take a piece of paper and he'd wad it up and he'd throw it on the middle of the table and be like, "I could do a story about that." And everyone would go like, "What? What are you talking about, wild wizard man?" Like it was so weird, but like that was what he marketed himself on. He was able to briefly, but yeah, now I haven't heard anything or seen anything from him. So
The Rock, he did that movie with The Rock that was just, he turned in a 3.5 hour movie at, it was Sundance or Cannes, I can't remember, but it was in all the trades they were writing about it because people literally booed at the end of the movie,
oh, I
which
didn't
is
hear
a
about that.
terrible look. Yeah. I can't remember the name of the movie, but it has about every celebrity in Hollywood in it. It's completely confusing. It's difficult to tell what's going on.
Yeah.
It's
I
all over
think
the
he's one of
place.
those guys that broke the rules from the beginning with his
Mhm.
writing career and did well and lucked out like 1 out of a million type thing.
Yeah, totally.
Realize you got to learn all the rules inside and out before you break them, you know?
Yeah,
So now he's it's like he keeps failing with all of his other wacky stuff.
I'm probably talking smack right now. He's probably has already got a huge comeback movie that I don't know of. So we'll have to.
Could be, yeah, it could be. I'll watch it.
Just Mercy for $2. I almost Just Mercy for $2 says, wait, Dick Jackers for Jesus Smashers. They're having fun.
Jackers.
Dick Smashers, I
Jeez.
think, is a mistake, just because it does sound like could be a feminist book.
Yeah,
Comic Book Hut will give us a good review, but
I'm sure.
Just Mercy for $5. Have either of you read Robert McKee's story? And what do you think of his approach to writing, or David Mamet's Three Uses of a Knife and his? I haven't read David Mamet's book. I have read Robert McKee's story, and I think I've read Robert McKee's story enough that I've memorized much of it. Let me see if I can remember. Uh, turn one of the great things that Robert McKee says is turn exposition into ammunition. And
Yeah.
obviously it rhymes, so it must be truer, but it's so true. And not a lot of beginning screenwriters don't realize this, that each scene is really a mini movie in and of itself. And if you tell yourself that, you'll be a much better short writer. And I'm convinced shorts are a good way to show, you know what you're doing. When a scene for me is two people with opposing goals, and the scene ends obviously when one of them wins or loses. So that's the way that I focus on scenes. And the turning exposition into ammunition is great because, like, you don't want your characters to walk out and start talking about how, oh, this reminds me of back when we were in college and you got that letter from your girlfriend. Do you
Yeah.
remember? Like, it's so obvious what's going on there. Like, they're just
Heavy-handed.
yeah, exactly. But people do.
Yeah, it's so fun though. I love exposition when it's done creatively and like it's worked in a natural way. So much fun, such a cool challenge because you have to get creative with how you're gonna do it in a way that doesn't just make the audience roll their eyes.
Well, he says turn exposition into ammunition. So like that letter in high school, when your girlfriend sent you that letter in college or whatever, like if you're in a scene with your roommate, like you could use that to basically as a dig, like, oh yeah, your your girlfriend hates me so much, that's why she sent me that letter in college. Like then all of a sudden you're like, what? Uh-oh, something's going on here. So you're giving the backstory at the same time that you're creating more conflict, and conflict drives the story. A lot of people, it's funny because as YouTubers, we're like, obviously we don't like drama. Drama is like, no, we don't want to make drama videos. But this is why drama videos are popular, because people want conflict. Like you're introducing a storyline here that people are going to come back and want more. Like we all want the conflict point that we're at right now, the way I see it in Comicsgate, is what's Doug TenNapel's next book going to sell? Like what's that book going to do? Like, is him being such an outspoken critic of Comicsgate going to hurt him in the crowdfunding world? We don't know. It's an open question. It's
well, from what I've seen from how successful Earthworm Jim was, I think I heard him say that he learned from that, as in he knows who to hire to advertise it, because everywhere I went when Earthworm Jim had launched, I saw ads for it. And so this was a team thing. And I think that it formulated a new way for him to be successful with his books. I think he'll do just fine. I don't know except there's this part of me that's like, but will people show up for Bigfoot Bill? Because Earthworm Jim had that 90s nostalgia carting it to the heavens. It was such a big game. Everybody knows it. Not everybody knows Bigfoot Bill. We worked to make sure Bigfoot Bill went well for Doug, wishing him the best, and it did pretty well and awesome. Like I got a copy of it. I was excited for it, but I think his next book will be Bigfoot Bill 2, and he has so many people from the success of Earthworm Jim that I think he'll do well enough. So yeah, that's what I think. I think he'll do well enough. Not Earthworm Jim levels, but still well enough. I think he's got a team of people who will do good advertising for him, and all that good stuff. I myself was not a fan of the book Bigfoot Bill. I didn't think it was very well written. It seemed kind of slapped together in terms of story and writing.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was actually surprised by that. I when I read it, and I watched Doug's YouTube. I used to be a fan of his, no longer. When I watched it, he would talk about his writing process and how he does these very intense note cards and very intense 3-act structures, and then many 3-act structures within every scene, and all these 3-act structures. I think he gets bogged down with too much structure, and then his dialogue suffers for it.
Really?
He doesn't care. I don't think he cares as much. That's just my diagnosis as one writer to another. I think he structures so much that his dialogue doesn't have room to breathe and like give the characters more life and more funny moments. So it kind of felt like it didn't feel like a very, or a book I could get into the characters very much, even though the story and structure was totally there. I mean, and the art's fun. I mean, there's a lot of good things. I'm just not going to be coming back for another book. And I'm just not interested in that style, I guess, in the end, like I thought I was. So,
yeah, a friend of mine, Eric Bork, he's a screenwriter. He's most well known for Band of Brothers. He was a producer on Band of Brothers. Uh, he worked for Tom Hanks and helped him develop the show. Yeah, he has a book, and I haven't read it yet, but I want to. I noticed it is on Audible, so I'll probably check it out. It's called The Idea, the 7 Elements of a Viable Story for the Screen, Stage, or Fiction. So he focuses a lot on the idea and coming up with an idea that's going to work. And he was in Deadline Junkies for a long time. He's a great screenwriter, a great script reader, script doctor. I think he does a lot of work as a script doctor. So that might be one to check out as well. It's relatively new, and I did see he had some videos on YouTube I saw, and I watched
Eric,
a
you have
couple
a
of
book
them.
that
Nice, man. That's awesome. Yeah, man, I've thought about writing a book on it, but I mean, I'm shifting over into comics and kind of reinventing how I do this and just enjoying the hell out of writing comics, man. It's the freedom of it. It's the doing it my way. You know, all the visuals are my way. Marco and I work well together. He understands me. It's just so awesome. I might be more into that now than screenwriting, right? So feel like because I don't feel any particular urge to write a screenplay. I just want to make awesome books.
Yeah,
That's where I'm at.
I feel exactly the same as you. I'm more interested in making my own stuff. So
yeah, my first screenplay that won some awards in Chicago and then got picked up to be produced into an actual short film. It was changed by an SJW and from a story about brotherhood into a story about racism. I mean, the opposite of brotherhood. And it was bad. I was like, never again, man, never again. And then I wrote this whole stage play for this guy who was going to put on this big production. He had done Predator, the musical, and all this crazy stuff. And he never ended up making that. He ended up kind of taking the money and skipping town, actually. But he rewrote my script into something totally different and changed characters to girls who were like sultry seductresses straddling people and just all this stuff I didn't write at all. And I mean, I just was like, dude, being a writer is just like asking to get your ass kicked like all the time, man. Like comics is where I could just do it my way. And like Monster of D is a testament to me doing it my way. That's what I love about it.
That stuff doesn't bother me. I mean, we're in negotiations now to option a script, and they could do whatever they wanted to with it, to be honest with you. I mean, they're buying it. It's their material. Yeah. And I always think of Alien. I think the script Alien sold based off of one scene, the chest cracker scene, and that's the only scene that actually made it into the movie. So a lot of times I have another movie that I'm considering. I have another script that I got quite a bit of interest in, and I'm convinced all the interest was based off of one scene because nobody seemed to like the script except for the final scene. And I kind of made a huge error in that script that I hadn't realized. Another big problem that I see in a lot of first-time scripts is people don't understand how important tone is. And I just use the metaphor of music. Like the first scene of a movie really encapsulates the entire tone of the movie. So a lot of times people will start off, they won't realize this. And, you know, if your movie is a horror movie, and they do this all the time in horror movies, you want to kind of let the audience know the level of gore that is going to be there in the first scene. So if your opening scene is like a totally heavy drama scene or whatever, just character driven, people are going to assume the whole movie is a character driven story. And then you come out with this horror stuff in the middle of the second act, and everyone's like, what the hell happened here? I feel like I'm watching. I feel like I'm watching a completely different movie here. So you really have to establish a tone. And I think I made that mistake on that script. I think the final scene is just such a different movie, but it's a scene that everyone loves. It's a scene that everyone's drawn to.
In the end, it's really like we're just selling an idea. that they
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
And they see it as something they can take and use, like someone looking at an old car in a junkyard and going, I'm going to restore that and make that into a pretty something, you know. It really is like that
But
these days. So.
you seem to be upset by the fact that, like,
Yes.
I know if I ever option or sell that, if I ever sell that script, like the first thing they're going to do is they're going to delete like the first 75 pages of the script.
Yeah, like I don't.
I've
like
accepted
that.
it. It's what's going to happen.
You sound totally good with it. I'm at a point where I'm like, dude, I'm trying to make my thing here. I know I could do something good with this, but it's not like I'm against it if there's the right people on it making it awesome, you know. But I've always had people turning my scripts into these just horrible.
Well, if they,
like
I guess
for me, that script that got changed by the SJW. Back when I made that, I thought that was my ticket into Hollywood. And when he changed that, I was like, there's no way this is going into Hollywood. But then I realized, yeah, like, but if I go into Hollywood, that's what's going to happen to all my scripts.
Totally. Yes. I want to make it clear, like if they're making it worse, obviously that's painful. That's totally painful. It's much different though. So many of my friends have sold scripts that just have never gotten made. So I guess it's easier for me because I think, well, of course they're going to buy the script and it's never going to get made. So why stress out about a movie that's never even really going to get made? So, but did this social justice script actually get made? Is that?
Yes.
Oh, it did. Okay. Painful.
And because of the changes, because you have to understand, Columbia College Chicago, our professors are not just professors. They are people that work in the industry. They're people with an awesome roster of movies under their belt. And I had all these people, all these professors telling me like, this script is like a winner. This is going to make a great film. This is going to make a career for you. You know, it was winning awards. I was so pumped for this. And it was kind of towards the end of my time in school. I was ready to like unleash on the world. I had worked my ass off to make story my number one priority. And this like little director kid came in and was just like, yeah, so your script has a scene where they play cowboys and Indians. So we're thinking, yeah, this is really about racism. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, no, it's not about that at all. Didn't you read it? But yeah, so it really was disheartening. It's different than Hollywood picking it up and you making a fat paycheck. This was supposed to be my career starter. And
I got
like,
you.
okay.
So you basically gave it away for nothing, and then that's much more disheartening. Much more disheartening.
Yeah, I was a little student hopeful, you know.
Well, this is funny because this is what we talked about. They're judging it on a completely different criteria. It's like, I know that I can't get into the film festivals unless there's some kind of social justice advocacy in this short. So he was doing you a favor. He's like,
yeah. Well, it didn't. I don't know if it made it. I don't know if it ever made it into film festivals because he just mutilated the story, and it turned into this huge battle type thing between us. Because I had made the contract so that I get first rewrites. I was like the only screenwriter who'd done that.
That's good.
Encountered, and he did a full rewrite with some other writer to change it into like, and white people are racist, y'all. Wink, And so I came in and was like, hey, Mr. Breach of contract here, you're going to get in big trouble for this. And he did, but he didn't get thrown off or anything. He still got to do it. And so he just kind of half-assed the movie. He didn't understand what was so funny or charming about it. He told me he was straight up an activist who wanted to make activist films. And I'm like, that's great and all, but imagine if you made my movie the way you needed to, and then we both do well and get our foot in the door with it. And then you can make all the, movies about racism that you want. But he wasn't hearing it.
I don't know that he's wrong, to be honest with you, because it seems like, you look at the film festivals, the movies that they're picking, and they are definitely social justice.
I didn't even think about that, but what you're saying makes perfect sense. It's what's in vogue, and it's kind of, some people say it's a sign of them actually dying because Hollywood's not making, or they're making less movies, they're relying more on blockbusters for numbers. We're not getting as much original artful stuff anymore, and so they're just kind of going out kicking and screaming with the social justice.
I have a friend of mine who's a director that goes in and cleans up because they hire a lot of directors that don't know what they're doing, and he basically is just a fixer. He goes in at the end
Oh
of the
wow.
he goes in at the end of
I
the
was thinking
project
about being
and
a script doctor.
yeah.
So he fixes it? Wow, how? That's crazy.
They give him like half a week. And he shoots like whatever's missing. Like they put him in the dailies room. He looks at what they've got.
Wow.
Yeah, and
That's intense.
yeah, yeah.
If you could make money off it and try to polish people's crap up, I'm all for it. Making a movie is like stressful chaos. I can't do it. I'm a nerdy. I want to be a writer. I want to sit at home and be comfy. Like being on set just drains my energy, you know?
Yeah, Los Angeles it is kind of assembly line work. We shot a movie last year and we're shooting another one this year. I'm actually in it as background on this week, but we got Eric Roberts for the movie, so I might actually do an interview with Eric Roberts, which would be cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. He's in all he's like in every single indie movie you've ever seen.
Yeah.
So.
Made an indie career.
Yeah. So all right, I guess we've gone. I think we've probably droned on long enough. We're approaching the 2-hour mark, but this has been great, man. This has been a lot of fun. It is fun talking about this stuff, and it's fascinating. Definitely. I don't know how pretentious it is because I don't know that people are interested in this stuff. You'll have to let us know in the comments below. So
I try to talk in terms of not worrying about entertaining, but just trying to get people excited about story. I want, or like curious about the craft, because I think we all have a little bit of writer in us, which, you know.
I think we all have a lot of writer in us, which I like, but there is, a lot of, it's interesting because I love YouTube. I think of myself as a YouTuber. I totally love YouTube. Yeah. But I am an artist, and my love of YouTube really comes out of being an artist. Like I like making things. I like doing things. It's funny that I have probably half a dozen unfinished shorts, probably another 3 shorts that I just have never even bothered to upload because I'm embarrassed of them. They didn't turn out any good. The thing that I like the most is the thing that I just made myself, the social justice detective. I thought after having so many failures in working with other, like putting together a film crew, it's so much work to hire a DP, hire a sound guy, hire all the actors. And then you have, something inevitably goes wrong on a set and you don't get your whole shot list done. Like you're scheduling another day. It's
crazy.
Right. So it's a nightmare. Yeah. I went into social justice detective and I just thought, let me see if I can play these roles myself. And then I can just do it whenever I want, whenever I have free time. Yeah. And making comics is the same way. It's like, whenever I have free time, I schedule time each week, but more and more I'm spending my free time doing it because I love doing it. It's just so much fun. Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
welcome to my world.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I'll look at a script for you if you ever need me to.
Yeah. Well, you can check out if you want to check out Dick Smashers, I'd love your feedback on marketing and stuff like that. There is, are you familiar with the Blacklist? The Blacklist is
yes.
Okay. Yeah. So the Blacklist has a website where they do coverage on scripts. And I had done coverage on an early draft of that, and they get like 10,000 scripts. So out of thousands and thousands of scripts, the script made it to the top 10 of the comedy scripts. So that's actually how I got. Yeah, that's how I got interest in it. So that's how we got so much interest in it because.
Well done.
Yeah. So I used a bunch of the coverage for marketing in query letters, and it's an awesome script. It's $100 million movie about a bunch of drug addicts. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Good, man. I can't wait to check it out. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll end it there. Thank you so much for the super chats, guys. Thank you for your questions. If you have any more questions, go ahead and leave those in the comments below. And I always read my comments, so I'll be happy to answer them. Take care, everyone, and we will see you in the next video.
Later.